What's up, Dragon Brood? In this video, we want to talk about moving from regular standard to alchemy without breaking the bank, right? Because I think that's really the biggest hurdle for everybody. Now, don't get me wrong, some of you are just not going to like alchemy, and that's totally fine. If you choose to play standard, that's your jam. Don't let me change your mind. But there are a lot of people that are interested, but you have concerns about, like, well, can I play without buying a whole bunch of rares or a bunch of packs? And like, what's the best way to move forward if I do want to try the format out? So I have some options for you, and we can discuss that. But this is more about keeping an open mind and saying, like, hey, let's talk about how we can explore moving into the other format. This isn't about, let's make it about versus, standard versus alchemy or whatever. That's not what I'm aiming for here. This is strictly for those of you that are at least considering trying alchemy and feel like there's a, resource or financial roadblock for you. Let's get into it. Okay, first things first, let's have a real talk on if the format is even for you. And I don't mean that in like, this isn't made for you, but it just may not be the right thing for you right now. It may not even be the right type of Magic you enjoy playing. Like, for example, if you do enjoy playing mono white aggro or mono green aggro, or I guess, is it Epiphany because some of y'all are twisted and enjoy that stuff, maybe you just keep playing regular standard. Right? Those are three of the best decks. Those are the three most hell, I'd even say probably predominantly mono white aggro and is it Epiphany or is it variants. Like, that's kind of the bulk of standard right now, and those decks are good. And if you enjoy playing those decks and you've already spent your resources and you want to be playing one of the top decks, then yes, continue playing standard, because that's going to be the best option for you. I'm not going to tell you any different right now. Like, if you enjoy those decks, keep playing standard. Those are what are crushing right now, right? And any of you that have followed my streams will know this, right? We got on the last two nights, and I believe one of the nights we played a bunch of Is It Epiphany, another night we played against a bunch of mono white aggro, to the point that I think between those two streams we really only played against like 3 mono green, maybe 4, and that was like the third most popular deck. It wasn't even close. One night I think we played against 4 decks that weren't one of those, which, nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. However, if you enjoy, let's say, mid-rangey type Magic, or you want to try some other combo-y things or whatever, well, that's not something you're going to be able to do right now in the current standard. Not at least efficiently to get a high win rate. Like, you can play some and maybe you'll win a game here or there, but it's going to be hard to even stay above 50%. So that may not be the spot for you. So now you start thinking about alchemy and saying, okay, well, are there things I can do there without having to play a ton of the new cards? And that's the thing we want to dive into a little bit next. So the best option I have for you is consider looking at decks that don't require a lot of new alchemy cards. Actually, let's take it a step further back. How about look at decks that utilize a lot of cards that you already own or that have been rebalanced? Because that's an interesting start. So let's take a look at one deck I put up a couple days ago. Now, this deck becomes interesting because if you go down this list, there's effectively, I believe, just Settle the Wilds as the lone actual cards from Alchemy. Right? There's really not any other things you need to be playing. So this is just using cards that have been rebalanced. I mean, it has Druid class and it has Omnath, but really nothing else here. And we were able to win games playing this. Matter of fact, I would even say if you don't want to play Settle the Wilds, there's a reasonable correlation if you want to play Field Trip out of Strixhaven, and it still searches for a land. Now, admittedly, you don't get a bonus card necessarily, but it still can get you a card out of your, or you build a lesson board and it can let you get an extra card that way. So it's still doing some of the good work. And it's going to, in most cases, function very similarly. So yeah, why not go this route if you want to play it, right? This is a deck you can play. I mean, it's technically a standard legal deck minus Omnath, because Omnath is banned in standard. But this is a deck you can totally play in Alchemy without spending a bunch of new cards. And for that matter, Settle the Wilds, if you do want to play it, is an uncommon. So most of you have some spare uncommons you could spend on this card. So assuming you already crafted lands or whatever, yes, there's a bunch of multi-lands in here, but, you know, you could find different lands to play here. You don't necessarily have, in some of these I'm playing one-ofs, so like, even that's flexible. But yeah, these are cards that are all available in Standard currently. You probably already have them because you got rebalanced. I don't know why I said rebranded. Rebalanced versions, and this allows you to play this type of deck. Now, let's take a look at another deck that will require some crafting, some new cards, but a very minimal amount. Okay, this is a deck I had up, I think, a week ago or so. If I remember, I'll try to link it here if you want to see it. But this is one that, again, doesn't require a lot of new cards. Matter of fact, the only real new card we're playing here is Inquisitor Captain. And I would say if there's a downside, the only real downside is that this is already a popular deck in the format. So there's that, but it's popular for a reason, right? It's quality, it's good, it plays fast, it's easy to play. So this could be a good jumping on point. But again, if you've played my version of this deck from a couple of different seasons, because I think we built this in each of the last 3 seasons, it's just an Abzan Cleric life gain deck. All of these cards, and actually it has a bunch of commons and uncommons even in it, but it does play stuff like Voice of the Blessed, which is a rare, so you're going to have to get your hands on that, you know, Righteous Valkyrie. But there are a lot of cards that if you are building like Vanishing Verse, Elite Spellbinder, like these are cards that are good for multiple decks anyway. And again, you probably already own some from building other decks. If you played Orzhov mid-range or whatever, like Orzhov Control, you probably played Vanishing Verses, you know, so those are there. But again, coming back to the point, if you go down this list, we have Angel of Unity, which again is an uncommon, fairly easy to build. And then we go all the way down to the Inquisitor Captain, and that's it. 6 cards, 3 rares, 3 uncommons. Like, this isn't something you have to necessarily break the bank to build and be able to play in the format. And we know this deck is quality in format, and it's proven. Tons of people are playing it. Various versions of it, one way or the other, but like, this is all totally doable. Again, there's some lands, but these are lands that are older that people have probably crafted by now anyway. But even then, you could mix and match your lands for whatever you own and probably get very close to this version. And this is available on the channel. You can watch games with me playing it if you want. But like, this is actually good. And again, we're talking about another deck that doesn't need a bunch of rares from Alchemy. But we have another one. Okay, so if you like discard lists, mono black discard, here's another option. And again, we're playing a bunch of just commons, uncommons, rares that already exist in standard. So not a ton. And we're not breaking the bank on a lot of things. We do have Gutmorn, which is an actual mythic from Alchemy. But again, we're playing 3. And then the only other one from Alchemy is the 3 City Stalker Connoisseur. That's it. Everything else already exists in standard. A lot of you already play some version of mono black discard or Turgid or whatever. So you can totally build this. Like, here's another ready-made option. And again, we have this video up on the channel. You can watch the playthrough. But totally viable option for Alchemy without having to go break your bank. But there's still more. We have a Werewolves list. And this one plays, I believe, 5 cards. I have 3 Rahilda and 2 Blood Rage Alpha. And I would even venture to say, I haven't played this one yet on video, but I would say this is one that I'm even thinking about possibly even cutting a Rahilda, possibly cutting the Blood Rage Alphas, playing another Volatile Arsonist, and maybe even playing just a couple of, changing the lands so I could actually play some Blizzard Brawls. So again, and that's even making the deck a little bit cheaper on that matter because we're adding Blizzard Brawls, which is an uncommon that many people already have. So again, this is another deck that's not loading up on new cards. Like, these all exist. A bunch of people already have werewolf decks. You can totally play this in the format. You just have to make sure you play enough removal that lets you hang with the life gain decks and whatnot. That's really the only concern. Otherwise, this is another viable option. So tons of choices that are out here and available. And I think even if you're looking, let me do a quick check real quick, but I'm pretty sure we had this Burrows deck maybe yesterday, if I have my video sequences correct. But this is a situation where this one, again, I think we had Arm Scavenger, which is the only, after playing the deck, this is the only rare I would say is required. We had Expedition Supplier, but I don't think that's really necessary, and Toralf's Disciple, which we never even got the lightning bolts off this anyway in any of the games we played. So this could totally just be any other reasonable warrior at 2 or 3 mana. And there you go. You can play this deck as well, which basically is only 3 new rares. Everything else is stuff that already exists in standard. So what I'm saying is lots of deck options that are available. Now, let's say you don't actually own a bunch of rares or mythics already anyway, right? You're new, maybe you just want to hop right into Alchemy. The truth is that may not necessarily be your best path. You want to at least build up stuff for Standard anyway, because don't forget that every time a set comes out, Standard's still going to be the popular played format for at least the first month until the new Alchemy stuff comes out for that set. So you probably want to just build up your Standard backlog anyway. But even if you do want to take a chance, just look at decks that can be played in both formats. Something similar to the if you want to play the Boros equipment deck, that's a thing. You can try to build 2 versions there. You can play werewolves in both formats, as we showed. So there's a few different things you can do along those lines, and then that way you could build toward one deck while building up a few extra assets to let you play the other one. That's going to be your easiest path. Don't necessarily try to go all in on a brand new deck that requires a bunch of rares, because it is going to be expensive and it is going to be a tax on your resources. No denying that whatsoever. So you have to take that into consideration on what you have available and what makes sense. But do understand that there are options if you want to make that step without spending a bunch of money or breaking the bank. Now, to follow up, again, if you actually are at the point where you just don't like it fundamentally, cool. Understand, keep playing Standard. If you like playing certain decks that are already good in Standard, keep playing them, because those decks are not going to carry the same weight in the other formats. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Take advantage of the time, resources, fun that you're getting out of it. Don't change. Now, if you don't like where Standard is and you're tired of playing against those 2 decks more than anything else, then go ahead and give it a look. There's options. There's different decks you can build. Now, don't get me wrong. There are still Alchemy decks that you can play that have tons of new cards from Alchemy. But the reality is you don't have to play those to be competitive. We've shown that time and time again already here over the last 2 weeks. So open up your mind a little bit, check out the different decks that are available, and honestly, more importantly, watch the content from people that are creating Alchemy decks. Mostly because you'd be surprised how close you can be to building those decks without breaking the bank to begin with. But you won't ever know if you never expose yourself to it. Anyway, let me know in the comments how you feel about this, about the different decks I have available. Have you tried some things that work for you in Standard and then also translate to Alchemy? Kind of curious where everybody's at with that. But as always, please consider joining the channel and helping me out. Otherwise, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Remember to hit the notification bell, hit all notifications, make sure you don't miss any of the good stuff I'm putting out. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.